Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to, I don't even know what number I would call this fireside chat. I think it was 115, 116, but we're doing what I call a special episode because we were talking to a very special person. That is true. But I'm excited to have this conversation. This person is a amazing ultra runner, started late in the game, but has an incredibly vast knowledge of the sport. Is a great coach, great PT. Just did a amazing marathon out at the Lake District. There's so much to talk about. Just recently became an author on the Run Try Bike platform as well, and runs the business Train for Body and Mind. This person uh, needs an introduction because people are often too humble to give themselves great introductions. But this person is simply an awesome human being to talk to. And, even though this is a pre recorded fireside chat, we will definitely send whatever questions you have for Dr. Irene over to her. And be sure to be on the lookout for more of our articles on our platform. But if you haven't seen them already, we'll be talking about them. There have been some great articles on inflammatories, on heat acclimatization, and some amazing stuff. But I've been babbling on too much. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Dr. Irene Moena Gonzalez. Hey,
Hi, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Nice to be here finally. After a couple of failures.
It's and you're in a great place right now too. I was looking at your background and I was making the joke like it's a little bit toasty out here in California right now, and I would love to jump into that pool right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I put the pool because if you look at the window in Edinburgh, it's really winter already here.
That's crazy because like I was just in Edinburgh like in April. It's already winter there.
It's pretty, yeah, the weather this week it's been pretty bad. Like you can see and you can feel the people that is we are already in like the winter feeling.
I saw the reel I did see the reel that you made about like training. I think it was like finding joy or positivity in
Oh,
training, and it
with
was
the
like
wind.
the wind in your face.
It's
I
been
was like,
insane.
oh my goodness, was that recent? But it sounds like the answer is yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild, but it's fine. It's okay. I mean, you get to enjoy the mountains anyway, so that's okay.
Yeah, I was only able to spend a day and a half in Edinburgh, but it was such a beautiful place to be and to see and to be able to go to like Arthur's Seat and like walk around Princess Street and have all the vegan haggis was so good.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful city, very historical as well, and it's a nice city because it's not big, and you have like the mountains 10 minutes from the city, so it's quite yeah, it's quite nice. I don't live in the city center because I like to live more, you know, but yeah, it's a nice city. Yeah.
Yeah, just impressive architecture, and it's sounds like you have like great access to the mountains, which is a very important criteria for me too, to be able to be near the mountains.
For me, it's a basic, yeah.
So before we jump into the conversation, we asked this question last time, but I have to ask this question again, as it is tradition every single time we have this conversation. Unfortunately, you only have the choice of talking to me or me. So depending on what answer you give, this conversation could be very awkward.
Okay, I can't remember who of you was. Okay, yeah, ask the question.
So pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yay.
Yes.
But I mean, it's a yay because pizza is good with anything. But if I had to order a pizza, I would never order a pineapple pizza.
Oh, I like
Exactly.
that answer. That's true. Pizza is just good in general, so it's good with.
Exactly. So if they offer me a pizza with pineapple, I'm gonna eat it, of course. Yeah. But if I order a pizza, it's gonna be a very cheesy pizza. So
Oh, I love a good cheesy pizza. I do love a good Neapolitan pizza too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's you can't go wrong with pizza. It's such a good pre-race food and
And
like
after,
so good. Just
yeah,
carbs and protein and everything.
yeah, exactly.
And just cheese. I mean, I have a weakness for cheese, so.
yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about, you wrote a story. We did an interview of your story on our website. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called Mental and Physical, Irene's Ultra Journey. And I want to talk about like with the first line of that story. You started running late in the game, 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was at the time you were studying a PhD and you wanted to blow off steam. So talk about that journey, like talk about what you were studying back then and talk about like how you first got into running and what you meant like by blowing off steam.
Yeah, so I was doing a PhD in neurobiology. So basically, I was looking at how to repair the brain and the spinal cord so that we could find therapies for diseases of the brain and the spinal cord like multiple sclerosis or Alzheimer's disease. It was a very stressful time at that time. So I was looking at things to do that would help with, like work-life balance. So running became one essential. At the beginning, I was just running very inconsistent and I was doing short events just to raise money for charities like 10Ks and so on. But then, as the PhD progressed, everything intensified. So the running as well. And I think it was just before COVID, with a cousin of mine. Yeah, that we get on really well. She's like my sister. We decided that we were gonna do a half marathon distance. And then we were training for that and everything was going well, but then COVID happened, so it didn't happen. But then on my own, I was training because in Edinburgh we weren't as locked as in other places, so we could go out as much as we could. So yeah, it's everything I was doing. So then I just like tried to do the distance myself. And the moment I did the distance, I was like, okay, what's next? And the same year I completed a half marathon distance. I did my first ultra, which was at the end of the year when things open up. Um, and yeah, I mean, the first ultra that I did was a bit of of well, interesting, I would say. I fell in love with like the experience. It was tough because obviously I didn't know how to train. I was training a lot like by running all the time and everything, but I was running mostly flat. So I didn't do anything race specific. I wasn't also practicing nutrition. So I would go with like no eating for a 40K run. So it was very pretty savage. And then to that race, actually, I was a bit injured, of course, when I got the time of running. But at that time, I was having quite a bad time with my PhD, so I decided that I was gonna do it no matter what. And yeah, I suffered a lot on that race, but I finished it. I couldn't run for a good couple of months afterwards. But yeah, I think this experience really showed me something that obviously that's what I'm doing today, right? Through that race is how I met my physiotherapist, which is the person I'm working with now. So yeah, it was like a serial of events that really took me where I'm today. Because from that race, obviously, I saw that I did so many things wrong. I became more interested in how I could coach myself better. And initially I was just gonna, because when I want to do something, I always like wanna learn it like well. I'm super perfectionist. So because running is what I wanted to improve, I started to study like crazy. So then I thought it was fun and I was improving. And then as like I was sort of like losing this passion that I had for neuroscience, I became more and more interested in sports. So yes, how suddenly, without realizing, I started to just like create a new path that I didn't know. Yeah, that I was. Yeah, I mean, if anyone told me a couple of years ago that I would be as I am today, I would have not believed that, honestly. Because like 2 years ago at that time, I thought I was gonna do a postdoc. I thought I was gonna have my own lab. I was gonna be a PI and everything. And now I'm like something in the other side of the spectrum. But I think it's been like the best change I've done in my life. It's been like pretty amazing. So yeah.
That's really amazing that like you went through that PhD and you finished it, and then you made that transition to this running career, which started as like this career in sports, which started as like I just need to like relieve stress. I just need to find something outside of like the crazy hours I'm working on a PhD, and now you then you found like it led you to finding like the physio that you work with, and now you're working with that as well. I have to ask, so that first 50K you did, you mentioned was a disaster, uh, which which is also true for my first 50K. It was also a total disaster. Do you feel like it sounds like it gave you more conviction to learn and get more knowledge in running? Do you feel like it helps you understand your clients better? To having no, like when you tell somebody like don't do this, having made the mistake yourself, do you feel like it helps you understand better?
Definitely. I mean, I can well like yeah, I mean, I can explain so many experiences of myself, of things that I've messed up that I can then tell them not to do. I mean, for me, it's been a lot of trial and error. So I think by failing, I know now how to do things well. So I think that's why I think I can convey well the message to my athletes and also to my patients and the clinic.
So, what made you? What was the thing that made you want to become a running coach the most? I know there's like, I know you mentioned there's like a passion for uh, learning from the mistakes that you made in running, but what made you want to teach others in the sport of running and help others?
I guess it's very satisfying seeing people improving and also achieving the things they want, and be part of this journey is amazing. Also, I have a very scientific brain, so I take every athlete as a sort of like an as experiment. So then from all the things I learn and I read and everything, I apply it to their trainings. So I can see what is working, what is not. I don't know, I can tweak things, so and I see that they improve. So I think in that sense, it's also really fun, and understanding the physiology and the changes that they are doing when they are training is also really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned having a scientific and informed approach. Like the for those of you who haven't read them, we will post the links up again. The Irene has written 3 articles for us on heat acclimatization. If you're looking for knowledge on running biomechanics, and also my recent favorite one, because I'm not a person who uses anti-inflammatories during races, so here
Great.
seeing the study about like anti-inflammatories and that update on that with scientific knowledge backing that up was a very good article to read. So I want to talk a bit about those articles because I have some questions myself, and I'm sure others will have questions too. But this is a question that I wanted to recollect from the last conversation that Jason had. So with heat acclimatization, I know that that is a very big thing for a lot of people training for races that are in the summer. There's a lot of like hot temperatures and climates that they have to deal with. What would you say for those athletes who have to train for those races but cannot access hot climates? They have to train in like winter climates. For example, like if you were training for a hot race, but you're living in somewhere like Edinburgh, you know?
Exactly. So that's had happened to me before. Like last year, I had to do a race in Spain, and obviously in Edinburgh the temperatures are generally very low. So of course, I didn't do any heat training while I was training, but during the tapering time is when I did heat acclimatization. So I went into the heat sorry, because
The
heat
word is a tongue
acclimatization.
twister. Even while I was writing it, I was like, climate,
Yeah, but then there is the acclimatization and it's okay. So yeah, I did a time before the race in which I was going to the sauna, so that then my body would adjust to these high temperatures, because at the end your body has to know to keep to regulate sweat so that you don't lose too much water and electrolytes, as well as your heart rate and everything has to normalize, so that then when you go to these warm climates, you really you don't suffer as much. The thing that I would not recommend to do that if you haven't done that long term, to do it when you're training, is because training in the heat is very metabolically consuming, so it uses a lot of energy. So if you are doing a lot of volume, that's gonna of course increase the levels of fatigue. So I think would counteract a little bit the effects of the training, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I remember I made a big mistake. One of the biggest mistakes I made in the book early on was like not adjusting my pace to the
Yeah.
climate or the perceived exertion. And you mentioned in the article, like slow down your pace, focus on like the exertion. And I think that that is especially important in the heat because I'll find that my pace might be sometimes even as high as like 45 seconds to a minute slower because it's so hot outside and exposed. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So definitely the heat, the heat affects a lot our pace. So I think I put some percentages in the article. I can remember. So I remember that I read an article, and they sort of like correlated temperature with like the decrease of pace, and it's really exponential how you see this decrease in speed with heat. And yeah, of course, that's because our body is using the energy to thermoregulate. So obviously, we are not going to have the energy to run as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just if I was just looking at the article. You wrote it was written a speed loss of 3.91%
Yeah,
and
I can't
2.84%
remember exactly the
males
percentage.
in males and females. Yeah,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense because of that perceived exertion. One other
Mhm.
one last question I have about that article is I know that people, especially in those climates that don't have access to heat, often talk about doing sauna sessions. So talk about that and if that provides any benefits.
Yeah, definitely it does, because obviously your body, as I said, learns to thermoregulate in that high temperatures. But as said, I would definitely just prescribe the sauna when you're tapering. And you have to take into consideration that the full changes in your body take place in 10 to 14 days. So obviously, if you spend the 3 last days in the sauna before the competition, that's going to make nothing. So you really have to time the time that you are going to do this acclimatization.
Okay, that's good to know. Especially I didn't know about the timing of it too, so that's
Yeah.
very important to know.
It's
Uh,
very important. And also, if you are competing in heat, you really need to compete very shortly after doing this adaptation, because the adaptations that you get from heat, they degrade very quickly in time.
uh,
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know if it's the same, but I've done a few races at high altitude, and I live at sea level. And I've noticed that after doing those races or training at high altitude leading up to the race, like the next time I go back, the effects of it go away
Yeah.
after a very short span.
Yeah, with altitude is very similar. And if you don't have, for instance, if you're gonna, that's an article that I want to write. So, for instance, if you can't train for altitude and you're gonna be competing in altitude, something that is really recommended is that you compete in altitude. So you don't go to the place days before, so that you don't start making those adaptations, because the moment you start making those adaptations, you are going to feel more exhausted. So your performance is going to decrease until you have achieved such adaptation, such increase in hemoglobin and everything, if that makes sense. So it is recommended that if you're going to compete in altitude, you go the day before you're going to compete to that altitude. You don't spend much more time, unless you have the time to be a week before. But I wouldn't recommend to go 2 to 3 days before, because then you're gonna start making these adaptations, and before and initially you're gonna experience a decrease in your performance. If
Uh,
that makes sense.
that makes sense. So the timing of it,
It's
whether
very
it's
important.
or a day before, is very important.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Man, I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
So the next article I wanted to talk about, and the reason I want to dive into this one is because running form and biomechanics is so important, and
Mhm.
I think that when we start running, maybe it's something, maybe that attention to detail or that stuff is very hard to. Uh, it's very hard to understand like the biomechanics of all of that, especially when you're just starting out running. So um, talk about the importance of having proper biomechanics for running. And if you were a beginner, if somebody was a client that you had that was a beginner, how would you tell them to study their own biomechanics or get help for their biomechanics?
So I do that, and I do biomechanical analysis, and this is something that we are now introducing in the clinic. And I have several people that have contacted me so that I analyze the form. And I would say that is very important, especially if you are prone to injury. I mean, a lot of the people, they are going to run and they are not going to get injured. And then getting a biomechanical analysis might not be required unless they are super picky and they want to improve their running economy. They want to get faster. But for people that, for instance, are having constant injuries and they don't know what's happening, I would definitely get a biomechanical analysis just to make sure that there's something there isn't something in their form that is making or producing these injuries.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. About 5, 6 weeks into when I first started running, I injured my knee.
Right.
I wasn't wearing the proper type of shoes. I went and got a gait analysis and found out that my right knee was always providing like 40% of the pressure, and like my left was providing 60%, and it was going inwards. And
Mhm.
I had to change the type of shoe and shoe brand I was using. And it's interesting how many different like nuances there are and like little details there are that you can fix from your form. I even, like I'm obviously not an expert and I've done like multiple gait analyses, but I remember like taking a video and like studying my own running form while running barefoot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Irene's like, you're crazy. Don't do that.
No, I mean, I'm not a big supporter of barefoot. If you want to run barefoot, go for it. If you're gonna do very long races, I'm not sure I would support that. And if you're gonna be running fast, I'm not sure I would support that. I mean, yeah. So there's a bit of a controversy in whether. Running barefoot is gonna help you to improve your running form, or I mean, there are things that, for instance, could improve, like ankle strength and so on, which is very important. But yeah, I don't think it's safer than running with cushion shoes.
Yeah, I mean, I love cushion shoes. I definitely don't condone barefoot running, just for the record, guys.
Yeah.
When I did that, it was like on the grass, and it was
Okay.
for maybe like 10 seconds just to like see what my natural running form looked like. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Um, Yeah, yeah. Also, something in regards to barefoot, when people decide to do barefoot, a lot of the people that do the transition do it very fast. And any change that you do in your gait is gonna take way longer than you think. So the transition to barefoot, it can take up to a year or over. So the people that is trying to transition to barefoot, I would never recommend to just like the next day just go and start running without shoes. So it has to be a very 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 slow process to avoid injuries for sure.
yeah, that's very sound advice, especially because I know that barefoot running or like using minimalist shoes is a thing, and I've never personally used them, but I've seen like the zero drop shoes that Ultra makes and those as well. And I've heard it's kind of a similar concept, but I don't know entirely for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's similar. Uh, However, as I said, any change that you decide to do with your shoes, if you, for instance, are used to running with a higher drop and then suddenly move to a zero drop shoe, I would always do the transition slower than you think you have to, because yeah, otherwise you're gonna develop problems in your calves, problems in your plantar fascia. So yeah, to avoid these annoying injuries, I would recommend to just do it slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very sound advice. And I think that's also very good advice in general for making any adjustments in the sport.
Yeah.
So the last article I want to dive into is the one you just wrote recently about anti-inflammatories. I know that it's been. I personally don't use them during my ultras because I feel like my kidneys, my liver, my body is already working so hard, um, and I also don't want to like numb myself to understanding what my body is feeling to hurt myself, and that's my personal take on it. It's not backed by any like science or any numbers or anything like that, but I personally just feel uncomfortable taking like anti-inflammatories. So I wanted to ask you, because I've seen people do it and people not do it. So I wanted to ask you, based on like your article and and like the data that you provided, like what is your stance on using anti-inflammatories during endurance sports?
So I really don't recommend it. So I decided to write this article because in races I've competed, I've seen a lot of people taking them, and it really can mess up with your race, and because of like not wanting to have this pain that you think, or this something uncomfortable that you're gonna feel, you really can feel bad. And one of the things that I say in the article, so for instance, in ultra races, one of the leading cause of dropouts, or one of the things that is more abundant in ultra races, are problems in the gut. So we tend to feel sick, or we can't take food in, and really anti-inflammatories irritate the stomach lining. So you really are gonna feel, you're gonna make your stomach very, very upset, and this can lead to a DNF, because if you don't take food, you're gonna DNF. So
Yeah, that yeah, I already when I started out doing ultras, I used to have so many stomach issues, and I
yeah.
used to take anti-inflammatories, not that many, but like one, maybe two, based on like some numbers that maybe weren't backed by anything. And then at some point, I stopped taking them, and it just, yeah, I think just like the idea of like working your body more than it's already working feels crazy to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and obviously, and it's because at the end, when people take anti-inflammatories, because it's the concept that everyone has of like inflammation is a bad thing, and actually inflammation is not a bad thing. It's something natural in the body. So just let it go.
So I want to ask you, like, if you're not using anti-inflammatories and you're in an ultra and you have like a muscle stiffness or something like that, would something like a would something like a topical gel or some outside source be okay, like a balm or a gel?
But containing anti-inflammatories, you mean? Or
Uh, no, just like a balm, like those biofreeze like sprays and all that.
I mean, it can help to bring heat to the muscle. I mean, already it's got a lot of blood in it. I would say that if you have a stiffness, just like stop and try to gently massage or relax the muscle. I think a lot of these creams also are more like a sensation rather than than really doing anything. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I know there's like other than the actual like pills, there are like different methods that people use. I was curious about your stance on that.
Yeah, I mean, if it has anti-inflammatories, I mean, as I said in the article, regarding topical anti-inflammatories, there's very little research, and probably the effects on the body are gonna be less dramatic as taking a pill. But in any case, I think if you go to an ultra and you have a pain, if it's not a bad pain, like an injury pain, just get over it.
I
Like,
love
try
it.
to problem solve. I mean, as I said, like go to the next station, chill a bit, massage. But yeah,
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, like massaging, doing some stretching. I think
yeah,
just uh, taking a break. I think for me, putting my feet up for a little bit, especially in those long.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. To bring like the swelling down.
Yeah, definitely. And like putting my feet up, sit down, cry for 15 minutes, come back.
Exactly. Have your moment.
Moment.
We all have them.
The longer it gets, the more you have.
Yeah.
So speaking of moments, and not saying that you had any in this one, and you might have, because ultras are ultras, and like races, trail races are tough. But I want to talk about the Scaffold Pikes Marathon at the Lake District. Talk about that experience. And you mentioned it being like a very technical course, but also in a very beautiful area as well at the Lake District.
Yeah, I love this race. So we know the organizers because they are the same organizers from the first ultra I did. So we tend to go and help them in a lot of races. So we have a very good, friendly relationship. They are amazing. So it's always really cool to see them, even like either if we are racing or we are just helping them. So starting from that, yeah, like obviously it couldn't go wrong. And then the race itself is in the Lake District, going up to Scaffold Pike, which is the highest peak in England. You say that and sounds like woo, and it's tiny. It's really fun. It has a little bit of everything, right? It has single tracks, it has scrambling, it has a lot of rocks. Um, it's beautiful, so it's really amazing, and also um like the people is great. So I really had a lot of fun. So we tend to always go to the same camping when we go to the Lake District, and we went this time with a friend of us. So obviously it adds to the fun. And we went there a couple of days before. So yeah, we were with the high terrain people, which are the organizers from the race, and then we did a little bit of wandering around, and then the race was amazing. I don't know, I had a lot of fun.
What was the weather like at the race?
Yeah, so obviously, no, we were like, because you never know. Like Scotland is very unpredictable, but the Lake District is like, don't check the weather. Like just go and see what's gonna happen, because you never know what's gonna happen. So we were lucky, of course. Up to Scaffold Pike, there was the cloud,
Yeah.
so it was foggy, and then the only thing you could see was the cloud. But once we left the peak, it was nice. It was beautiful. It was very humid, because the Lake District obviously is very humid, but it was a nice temperature to run. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. The humidity, maybe not so much, but
No,
it
the
sounds.
humidity always makes it harder. Yeah.
Yeah, they always joke it's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually really bad, the humidity. Oof, I struggle.
So the last thing I want to ask you before we get into the rapid fire food section is tell the audience a little bit about Train for Body and Mind. Where the You mentioned in the article, but where the name comes from, and also if somebody wants to get in touch with you, where they can find you.
Yeah, so we founded Train for Body and Mind with my my husband, Mario. And basically, we put that name because obviously at the end you can't work the body if you don't work your mind. And you really know that in the longer races, you really know that if you're not in the right mindset, you're gonna, yeah, your body's not gonna work. And at the end, it happens in races, and it happens in training, and it happens in life, right? If you don't have the right mindset, you're not gonna achieve the things you want. So at the end, be, because of our own experiences, that's how we thought that we were going to call our business. And yeah, with the hope of inspiring as well others.
Uh, And I would encourage everybody to follow. And there will be there'll be a reel about this fireside chat, and every time there's an article, there will be a collaborator post with Train for Body and Mind. I would encourage you guys to follow them on Instagram. Irene makes like the best, like the funniest reels ever. Like they always like they're just like so creative.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas for the next reels. I'm not having a lot of time lately, but yeah, once I have 5 minutes, I'm gonna do something more.
I really like the one about like I think it was like getting down the stairs or something like that after a race.
Yeah, that's how
It's
it is.
it's so true. I always try to like get accommodation near a race that's either on the first floor or it's one story.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes when I get
Yeah,
my hotel after, for some reason, my luck is that they always give it to me on the third or fourth floor.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today, Dr. Irene. And before we let you go, we're gonna dive into five this or that food questions. Are
Okay.
you ready for our rapid fire food questions?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go for it.
Would you rather eat ice cream with a fork or soup with chopsticks?
Ice with a fork.
Would you rather have to say yum yum after every bite of food or burp loudly after every sip of a drink?
Oh, barfing, please.
That was not the answer I was expecting, but uh, would you rather have would you rather have taste buds that make everything taste like birthday cake or ones that make everything taste like pickles?
Oh, a birthday cake.
uh, would you rather have nothing but rainbow colored foods for a year or foods that are only shades of beige?
The first one.
I like it. Rainbow colored foods. Um, would you rather, and the last one is, would you rather have to eat everything with a ladle or drink everything through a crazy straw?
That's a hard one. Drink through a crazy straw.
Yeah, that's my answer too. I don't know that I don't know that I could drink everything with a ladle. Dr. Irene, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and thank you so much for being a good sport about the. I know that we had technical issues last time, and just appreciate your patience. And thank you for coming back on the show and talking to our audience. And thank you for everything that you do for our platform as well.
Well, and thank you for having me and letting me help you.
Appreciate you, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. It looks
Yeah,
like daytime in that background, but I know it's evening over there.
yeah, it's quite dark actually.
Well, have a great rest of your evening.
Bye, bye.